Every neighborhood has rules, but this one had something else too. Quiet tension. The kind you feel but can't explain. I moved into the house thinking it was perfect. Small yard, clean street, polite smiles. I was a new guy, a black man in a place where everyone already knew each other. I waved. I nodded. I kept my head down. All I wanted was peace. At first, it was small things. People walking their dogs a little too close to my lawn. Shoes brushing the grass. A shortcut here and there. I didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't worth it. Grass grows back, right? But then it became a pattern. Every morning, I saw the same woman. Blonde hair, big sunglasses, keys always in hand. Karen. She lived 2 houses down and drove a shiny black Escalade that looked more expensive than my whole house. She never used the sidewalk. Never. She cut straight across my lawn, like it was public property. Heel marks, tire tracks from her turning too wide, dead patches of grass. Every single day. I tried being nice. I caught her once and said calmly, "Hey, could you please use the sidewalk? You're damaging my lawn." She smiled fake and tight and said, "Oh, honey, it's just grass." Then she kept walking. A week later, I got a letter. Not from her. From the HOA. It said I was violating community standards. My lawn looked uneven and unkept. I stared at the paper, confused. Uneven? Of course it was uneven. People were walking over it like a path. I went to the HOA meeting, explained everything, even showed photos. Karen sat there, nodding like she cared. Then she spoke. "We all use that area," she said. "Maybe if his lawn was maintained better, people wouldn't walk there." People nodded. That's when I realized something. This wasn't about grass. This was about power. About who belonged and who didn't. They find me. Not her. Me. So I put up small signs. "Please keep off the grass." They vanished. I installed decorative rocks. Someone moved them. I added solar lights. They were knocked over. And every time, another HOA notice appeared in my mailbox. Late one night, standing at my window, I watched Karen's Escalade roll across my lawn again, slow and confident, like she was daring me to stop her. That's when a thought crossed my mind. A bad idea. A crazy idea. An idea that made me smile for the first time in weeks. What if I stopped playing defense and started making a point they could never ignore? I didn't act right away. I waited. I watched. I learned. Every day followed the same routine. Karen left her house at 8:10 sharp, coffee cup in hand, sunglasses on, Escalade rolling like she owned the street. She cut across my lawn, turned wide, and never once looked at the damage, like it wasn't even there. I tried one last peaceful move. I knocked on her door. She opened it halfway, eyes scanning me like I was a salesman. I explained everything again. Calm voice, respectful tone. I told her about the fines, the letters, the stress. She laughed, actually laughed. "If you can't handle HOA life," she said, "maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for you." Then she closed the door. That night, I sat in my garage staring at my tools. I'm an engineer by trade. I build things for a living. Not weapons, not revenge machines, just solutions. My mind kept replaying her words. Not the right neighborhood for you. Like I was a guest who overstayed his welcome. I remembered something from years ago. A physics project. Simple mechanics. Leverage. Tension. Energy release. I grabbed a notebook and started sketching. At first, it was a joke. I even laughed at myself. This is stupid, I thought. Let it go. But then another HOA notice arrived the next morning. Another fine. Another warning. Still no word to Karen. That's when the joke stopped being funny. I went to the hardware store. With beams, metal brackets, industrial rubber bands. A few things that made the cashier raise an eyebrow. I told him it was for a yard project. He nodded like he didn't want to know more. For 3 nights, I worked in the garage with the door closed. Measured, cut, tested, adjusted. What I was building wasn't meant to hurt anyone. That mattered to me. No people, no animals, Just a message. Loud. Clear. Impossible to ignore. By the fourth night, it was done. From the street, my yard looked normal. Clean. Quiet. Nothing unusual. The device was hidden behind a low decorative fence, blended in like garden art. Anyone looking wouldn't think twice. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I stood by the window, heart pounding. 8:05, 8:08, 8:10. Right on time, the black Escalade appeared. Karen didn't slow down, didn't look around. She turned across my lawn like always. And that's when I reached for the switch and asked myself one final question. Had I just gone too far? Or was she about to learn a lesson no HOA letter could teach? The moment stretched out like slow motion. The Escalade's front tire touched the edge of my grass. Same spot, same careless turn. My finger hovered, shaking just a little. I wasn't angry anymore. That part had burned out. What I felt now was calm, cold, certain. I pressed the switch. There was a sharp snap, like a giant rubber band breaking the air. The hidden arm swung up fast, powered by stored tension, releasing what it was holding. A heavy mud-filled sod ball, packed tight from my own lawn, launched forward in a perfect arc. It hit the Escalade side with a deep, ugly thud. Not glass, not metal bending inward, but enough force to leave a massive splatter across the door and window. Thick, dark mud exploded like a paint bomb. Karen slammed the brakes so hard the car jerked forward. The engine stalled. Silence followed, broken only by birds and the ticking sound of hot metal cooling. My heart was racing so loud I thought she could hear it. Karen jumped out of the car screaming. She stared at the mess, hands in the air, spinning in circles like she couldn't understand how this had happened. Mud dripped slowly down her perfect door, onto the clean white driveway edge. Then she looked at my house. Our eyes met through the window. She marched to my door and pounded on it like she wanted to break it down. I opened it calmly, phone already recording in my hand. She was red-faced, shouting, pointing back at her car, words tripping over each other. You did this. You attacked my vehicle. This is vandalism. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, you drove across my property again. I told you to stop. I warned the HOA. I have footage of every time. She froze for half a second. Just enough. Police arrived. HOA board members showed up too, suddenly very interested. Karen talked nonstop, crying now, telling them how unsafe she felt. I showed my videos. Weeks of clips. Dates. Times. Clear shots of her car, cutting the same path again and again. I showed the letters. The fines. The ignored complaints. One of the officers walked the lawn, measuring the damage with his eyes. Another looked at the device, now locked and harmless. No sharp edges. No explosives. Just basic mechanics. The HOA president cleared his throat and said something about misunderstandings. Karen's Escalade got towed for cleaning and inspection. She didn't ride with it. She stood there, arms crossed, staring at the ground. As the street slowly emptied, I thought it was over. I was wrong, because 2 days later, a certified letter arrived that made my hands shake when I opened it. The letter wasn't from the HOA this time. It was from a lawyer, Karen's lawyer. The words were sharp and cold, talking about property damage, emotional distress, and legal action. She was suing me, claiming I had built a dangerous weapon and targeted her on purpose. I sat at my kitchen table reading it twice, then a third time. My hands didn't shake anymore. I expected this. By the end of the week, rumors spread fast. Neighbors who once smiled stopped making eye contact. Some whispered when I walked past. Others suddenly care a lot about safety. The HOA called an emergency meeting. I showed up alone. Karen came with her lawyer. They tried to paint me as unstable, angry, reckless. Karen spoke like a victim, wiping fake tears, saying she feared for her life. Her lawyer talked about intent and danger. When it was my turn, I didn't argue. I didn't interrupt. I simply played the videos, clip after clip, day after day. Her Escalade crossing my lawn, her laughing, her ignoring signs, the fines I received, the complaints that went nowhere. I explained the device calmly. No explosives. No targeting people. A one-time deterrent using mud from my own yard. I reminded them I warned her multiple times. The room got quiet. Then something unexpected happened. A neighbor stood up, an older man who had lived there for years. He said, "She cuts across my lawn too. Always has." Another neighbor nodded. Then another spoke up. Turns out my lawn wasn't the only shortcut. Mine was just the one she felt most comfortable crossing. The tone shifted. Fast. The HOA paused Karen's lawsuit support. Suddenly, they wanted mediation. They offered to cover my previous fines. They even talked about installing barriers along the grass edges. Karen sat stiff, jaw tight, realizing she was losing control of the story. Outside, as the meeting ended, she walked past me and hissed, "This isn't over." But it was over for her Escalade crossing my lawn. New stone borders went up the next day. Bright, solid, impossible to ignore. People stayed on the sidewalk now. Funny how that works. I thought the worst had passed. Then, one evening, as I pulled into my driveway, I saw flashing lights again. This time, they weren't for me. They were in front of Karen's house. And as I stepped out of my car, an officer looked at me and said something that made my stomach drop. "Sir, we need to ask you about something Karen reported, and it changes everything." Karen claimed I had been stalking her, that I was watching her, planning things, try to scare her out of the neighborhood. The officer's tone was neutral, but serious. I invited them in without hesitation. I'd learned something through all of this. Calm tells the truth better than anger ever could. I handed over everything. Security footage, time-stamped videos, emails, HOA letters, even the sketchbook showing how the device worked. Dated weeks before the incident, I explained my routine. Work, home, no detours, no obsession. Just a man protecting his property after every peaceful option failed. They listened, carefully. One officer stepped outside to review the cameras himself. 10 minutes passed, then 15. When he came back in, his face told me everything. Karen's story didn't match the facts. Not even close. That same night, I learned something else. Karen had reported multiple neighbors before. Noise, parking, pets, grass height. She'd use complaints like weapons. Most people just gave in. I hadn't. The investigation ended quietly. No charges, no warnings, no notes on my record. But Karen wasn't done embarrassing herself. A week later, her lawsuit was officially dropped. Not settled. Dropped. Her lawyer walked away. The HOA rewrote its rules about lawn access and fines. Clear lines. No shortcuts. No exceptions. The Escalade came back eventually. Cleaned. Shiny. But it never crossed my lawn again. Not once. Karen avoided me completely. Crossed the street if she saw me coming. Her power was gone, and she knew it. Months passed. My grass grew back thicker than before. Funny thing about lawns, and people too, when you stop letting them get walked on. One evening, the older neighbor who spoke up at the meeting stopped by. He looked at my yard and smiled. "You know," he said, "you didn't just fix your problem. You fixed a lot of ours." That's when it really hit me. This was never about revenge. It was about boundaries, about being pushed until silence feels like permission. I didn't win because I fought harder. I won because I documented everything, stayed calm, and refused to disappear. Sometimes people only respect you when you stop making it easy for them to ignore you. So here's the real question. If someone kept crossing your line again and again while everyone else looked away, how far would you go before you finally made them stop?